Hey guys, guess what? Turns out I am really liking Gostisbehere so far. All right, we're back with another episode of the Caniac Report. And yes, it is just me, Sam Wallace, for today's episode. And yeah, Sam Driscoll could not join us for the episode, but he will be back. And you're just getting me solo that you probably had probably for a few times if you've been listening to us for quite some time. This is actually the first time of seeing me being solo because we now have a YouTube channel. And if you don't know, we do have it. And if you are watching, please give us a like and a subscribe. That will really help us out a ton. Now, a few things I do want to talk about here is that the Calgary game on Thursday, we will be we will not cover that on Friday's episode because of how late that game is starting. It starts at 9 p.m. We just cannot get that game in for our Friday's episode because of our full-time jobs that both Sam and I have to do. So that will be pushed to Monday's episode, which technically releases a week from this episode being released. So you'll have two games, which is the Seattle game and the Calgary game. So that's one piece of news I just want to give you guys. And another thing, too, is that we have a link for donations. You can find that link in both our YouTube description and in the description in any of the podcast episode directories that you listen to for us, because I know we have plenty of people still listening to us from Spotify to Apple to Overcast to anything that you use to listen to your podcast. So that's pretty much it, I believe, for just podcast stuff. We're gonna go do some NHL news here. Now, not really a lot of NHL news has happened. And what I do want to do to cover the part for NHL news is obviously other teams have been playing, not just us. So I'm just going to look at the standings here, and I kind of just want to give my take on kind of the hot or cold starts some teams are on. And there are a few teams I do want to cover because to me it's a little bit surprising. And if you guys don't know, sorry if I had to pause there for a second, but just looking at the standings right now, there's one team I do want to talk about that's off to a pretty good start, and that is the Utah Hockey Club. Now, Sam and I did make an episode on the predictions that we have made for the standings. So, we're not going to go through the predictions. That's an episode in of itself. If you want to listen to that, I just go back probably to last month's episodes, probably, and listen to that. But Utah is doing really, really good. Sam and I actually watch, I believe, like the first 10 minutes of that game because we wanted to witness history because it is the first year of the Utah Hockey Club because they were once the Arizona Coyotes, and it was Dylan Gunther scoring for Utah to make it the first goal in Utah Hockey Club history. But they're off to a very, very good start. In 6 games, they have won 4 games, lost one, and lost one game in overtime. They are doing very good. And it doesn't really surprise me because I think Utah has a very good team. They've acquired, I think, good assets, obviously, in the offseason with John Marino and Mikhail Sergachev on the back end. And their youthful guys that they've already have in the lineup have really progressed. Like Dylan Gunther is already have like I believe 5 goals already. He's one of the top goal scorers right now in the NHL amongst Kucherov and all the other established goal scorers. So good for Utah. I'm really happy for them because they're still living in that Arizona Coyotes type of tandem, I believe. I mean, I do think they're still the Utah Hockey Club, of course, but I think part of them wanting to be good is they know what happened with Arizona in the past, and they kind of want obviously want to move forward, which I listen, I completely agree with them if they are thinking that. So good for the Utah Hockey Club. Another team that has a bit surprised me is the Nashville Predators. Obviously, Sam and I have ranked Nashville pretty high in the Central Division, but they're in a hole right now. They have lost 5 straight games in a row. They have not won a game. And I mean, obviously, they're going to be growing pains with Nashville because you've added a lot of new players. You've added Stamkos, you added Marchessault, you added Brady Shea. Lots of good players, but obviously, it is going to take time to gel. At the same time, though, you can't really put yourself in a hole like that because that Central Division's tough. And Nashville is now going to have to be in a position where they're going to have to dig themselves out of the hole, and second, prove that they can be one of the top teams in the Central, knowing that other teams in the Central, like Utah, and also another team in Winnipeg that haven't lost a game yet, they're going to have to battle, really battle to be up in the top 3 positions in the Central. Another team that has kind of surprised me is Colorado. They are 1-4. Again, won one game, lost four. Now they won their most recent game. That was against Anaheim. I believe, yeah, it was last night as I'm recording this. But Colorado, hopefully they need to get their gear on a little bit. From what I've heard, they've been kind of a little bit messy of how they've been playing. Obviously, they're not 0-5 like Nashville, so that's a little bit of a plus. But again, there are big expectations for Colorado because you have such a great lethal weapon in McKinnon. You have Rantanen, you have Landeskog back, you have a good D in McCarr, Devon Taves. And I mean, yeah, you can probably be like their goaltending isn't the best, but they have such a great blue line. They have such great forwards. They should be better than this. Again, with all this being said, even with Nashville and Winnipeg, who's doing well, this is still early in the season. But at the same time, usually when you get to about like 20 games into the season and you're not doing good, the odds are you're probably not going to be in the playoffs because there's always that Thanksgiving threshold. Like once you get to that Thanksgiving date and you're not in the playoffs, the odds of making it are a little bit tough. But it is still very early. I do think Colorado has the tools to still be a top 3 team. And another team too that's I would say a little bit surprising, Edmonton, they're 2-4. It seems like they're starting to get it together, sort of. But at the same time, I mean, Edmonton, if you look at where they were last season, they were one of the worst teams in the NHL at one point, and then they went on to become conference champs and face Florida. Obviously, they did not win the Stanley Cup, but we know Edmonton can do pretty much anything when you have a generational talent in Connor McDavid, and I would say Leon Draisaitl as well. So those are a few teams. I'm kind of just looking at the standings here just to see anything else. There is one other team, and that is Calgary. And boy, Calgary is looking good so far. Again, it's early. Anything can change, obviously, but in the first 5 games, Calgary have won 4 and lost 1 in overtime. They're looking really good for a team that's lost a lot of assets this offseason. Obviously, Noah Hannafin got traded to Vegas. You have Elias Lindholm leaving. You had, I mean, these are 2 impactful players that have left Calgary, which left us all wondering, are they going to be one of the worst teams this year? So far, no, they're doing excellent. But again, I do temper my expectations with teams this early. Again, most of these teams have played about 4 or 5 games, a little bit more, like Buffalo, New Jersey. So still very early on, but I kind of want to talk about the standings a little bit in the NHL news things, just to give you guys my take on the the hot starts for some teams and the slow starts for others. So I thought that was pretty cool to listen to, or to talk to, my bad. But next we have Hurricanes news that we're going to cover. And there are a couple things. In the last episode, Sam and I talked about Bali Sports partnering with the betting giant of FanDuel Sports. Well, it turns out FanDuel is really wanting to show their mark on Bali, and they are changing the Bali Sports name to FanDuel Sports Network. So I believe it's starting today, as you guys are probably listening to this, because this releases on Monday, of course, that Bali Sports is no more. It is now FanDuel Sports Network. And obviously, us Hurricane fans, all we want is to watch Hurricane games to where there are no glitches, there are no huge drawbacks or anything when it comes to streaming the Hurricanes. And I am there with you. I really am. So if this solves it, good. Because us Hurricane fans, again, I'm with you. We're getting sick. I mean, I thought it was really bad last year. I didn't have any problems watching the last two games. I would say probably technically the first two games on the road because I went to both home games. But so far, I haven't had issues. I think the biggest thing is that some fans, when they watch it, they can be like maybe a minute or two faster than other Hurricanes fans watching it on the same platform. I have a little bit of an issue with that, but it is what it is. To me, that's one of those problems that I hope they fix, though, because I think every Hurricane fan should be on the exact same second as other Hurricane fans are watching when it comes to watching Hurricane games on Bali Sports. But that's one thing I have noticed, actually. And another thing, too, Hurricanes did this right before the game on Friday against Pittsburgh, but they recalled Ty Smith. And when I saw that transaction, I was like, good, they're trying to have insurance in case there is an injury. And yes, we'll get to the St. Louis game, of course, but it's good to have that insurance because you never know with some of these players, they could get hurt and you might need to get Ty Smith in. Obviously, if you have a forward getting injured, can't really put Ty Smith in a situation like that to be amongst the forward group. So that's a little bit concerning in and of itself, but you do have at least some insurance with Ty Smith because he plays defense. So if someone like let's say Brent Burns got injured in the neck, like like kind of what we saw in St. Louis when he blocked the shot with his neck. Poor guy. But it's good that we have insurance on this road trip because we're going to need it. It's a long road trip because obviously the state fair is in town. And eventually, Carolina's going to have to go on that Western Canadian road trip, anyways. Any Eastern team is going to have to go through that. What I meant on Eastern team, Eastern Conference team has to go through that. So, in some ways, I kind of like that we're getting that Western Canadian road trip done early, but at the same time, Hurricanes need to show that they are still a very good team because there are quite a few people out there in the sports media world that think the Hurricanes are going to miss the playoffs. I don't think so. Obviously, Sam Driscoll, he doesn't think so. We both think the Hurricanes are going to make the playoffs, but they're not the team that they were last season. So that's pretty much it for Hurricanes news. Now we're going to get to recapping both Hurricane games. But before we do, let's get to a couple of our sponsors. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
What gets me excited about watching hockey is the fast-paced nature of the sport. Woo! Yes, that was Sam Driscoll, our other co-host that you heard. In fact, that is what got me sold when one of the first batch of games I watched was Game 7 between the Hurricanes and the Oilers back in 2006. Now, when it comes to going to Hurricane games, I am able to see quite a few great deals I'd like to go to in the future using the Game Time app. One of its features that I like to use are the seat views because it helps me visualize what I will be seeing when I'm sitting in that particular seat. Another key feature I like is the all-in pricing that shows your total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And yes, it is. It is game time. So let's get to it. The first game we are covering is the dominant win I thought Carolina had against Pittsburgh that made it 4-1. The first period, obviously, I mean, honestly, I thought Carolina was really dominant against Pittsburgh. I honestly thought Pittsburgh's best period, if you had to mark them by periods, was the third period because you can tell they're going to come out angry. But in the first period, Carolina was doing the exact same thing they did against New Jersey in their win, and that was the forecheck. They were really good on the forecheck against Pittsburgh, and then it gets a little bit discouraging. Again, kind of like New Jersey, because you have Drew O'Connor scoring for Pittsburgh. That makes it 1-0. And something that I have noticed, again, I think the Hurricanes are playing excellent right now. I really do. But at the same time, they need to make, I would say, probably the chances that they're getting, they really need to make the most of it. Because I feel like we saw that against St. Louis, which we'll get to. But unfortunately, that didn't really bite them so much because they did win and they deserved to win. A great 4-1 win. Again, obviously, Pittsburgh scored first, but we knew Carolina was the better team by far, even with Pittsburgh scoring first. And eventually, Carolina does score. It's Jackson Blake once again scoring from Eric Robinson and KK. And that was just really a great goal. I mean, Eric Robinson, Jack Drury, and Jackson Blake, that line, I thought that was the best line against Pittsburgh. And the reason why I thought that was the best line is that they resembled that forecheck, I thought, a little bit more than the other lines. But I'm not knocking shade on the other lines. I thought the other lines were really, really good. I just thought the Jack Drury line was just a tad bit better whenever they were on the ice. And they showed it. Because if you look at that line, it has both the brains and the bronze, to be honest. You have Eric Robinson, who's a big guy. He can go physical with you whenever he wants to. You have Jack Drury, he was a smart two-way defensive center. And then you have the skills guy in Jack Drury, who has really good smarts. He can skate, and he has good shot, apparently. Because, I mean, 2 goals already in 2 games for this rookie. He's doing really well. And eventually he gets rewarded with more ice time against St. Louis, but that goal that he did was just amazing. And honestly, I'm probably a little bit more impressed with the pass from Eric Robinson to Jackson Blake than the shot, but still, what a great play that both Robinson and Jackson Blake made. Like, it was just fantastic. And then you have, well, obviously that's the end of the first period. It's 1-1, and then in the second period, you have Netch's scoring on the power play. The power play was really good. Maybe Tripp was right. It needed to go out on the road, but power play has been good, honestly, in both games. But the Pittsburgh game in particular, power play was really good. And what I've noticed about the power play for the Hurricanes, when it is good, they are confident with the puck. They don't overanalyze. They just make sure that they have a lane. They have, when it comes to both shooting and passing, and they do it quick too. Because I'm sure we've noticed before when the Hurricanes power play isn't good, they overanalyze, they overpass, and there's not much movement, to be honest. But on these power plays, there's lots of good, confident movement. And I keep saying the word confident because it really does look confident. They look like they can do it. And they did. Netches scored on the power play. Really great goal from Jarvis and Aho. That makes it 2-1. And in the second period, Carolina was a lot like the same in the first period. They're putting on the forecheck, the pressure against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh couldn't do it. And then obviously Netches scores. And then on another power play goal, Shane Gostisbehere scores. And this is part of the reason why I added Shane Gostisbehere, my one-liner, in the fact that he has been doing great. And to be honest, like, listen, I love Seth Jarvis. I love Aho. I love Svetch. But Gostisbehere is, to me, a little bit starting to prove that he can be one of the best shooters on this team. Because to me, now, again, this is a little bit of a nitpicking thing. Obviously, I am nitpicking. Gostisbehere can really, really elevate the puck. And he has shown that. And because of that, he has scored quite a few goals already. 3 goals in 4 games. That's really good. And Gostisbehere, he's very good. He's very reliable on that first power play unit. Obviously, the assists from that Gostisbehere goal are Svechnikov and Netchus. That just makes it 3-1. And us Kings fans, I'm sure we're feeling a lot better about this game with it being 3-1. But at the same time, in the third period, we still need to continue that forecheck. Again, the Hurricanes forecheck is kind of the key to winning in this season. And I mean, obviously after that Pittsburgh game, I was like, I'm impressed. They're forechecking really, really hard. Honestly, I would say compared to last season. And I think part of the reason why they didn't forecheck probably as hard in last season's games compared to this season's game is because they know there's more pressure now on the stars and on the players, obviously, in the likes of Stahl, Martinook, and Carrier and Drury. You don't have as deep of a team this season. So I do think there is more pressure, but you know what? Some players thrive with more pressure, and Hurricanes are definitely doing good with their forechecking ability. And in the third period, you have Jack Roslovic scoring his first goal as a Hurricane with a great pass, really great pass from KK and Orlov. And another player I do want to talk about, I think KK is doing really good. I do. He's getting his points, but at the same time, as a second line center, you're eventually going to need to score goals. You just are. And I don't know if KK can do that. He's racking up the assist. And he's playing a big physical game, which is good. He needs to play that way. And I do think he's playing good because of that. But I still don't know if he can be a second line center or if anybody could be a second line center and not produce a lot of goals at the same, because at some point, if you're a second line center, you're going to have to produce, to me, at least 20 goals. And I just don't know if KK has the tools to score 20 goals. Again, I think he's been playing excellent recently. but I still have my concerns, and the reason why is because I just don't know if he can get 20 goals this season, 20 or 25. Honestly, if you're a second line center, probably need to get 25 to 30, to be honest. Again, he's putting up the assists, being physical, but that's my only thing with KK is if he wants to be a second line center, he's going to have to score goals. He really is. But he played well, and Carolina won this game 4-1. Very, very good. And another thing too, I mean, if you look at that Gostisbehere goal from the second period, how it got to that power play, obviously you had Michael Bunting high sticking Svechnikov. I think Svechnikov is playing good. Good on Svech for drawing that penalty to make it 4 minutes. And just really, really good performance. So that's pretty much it for the Pittsburgh game. Now we're going to be going to the loss against St. Louis, of course. Now, the St. Louis game, a little bit more of, I would say, a little bit of a concern, although not too much. I'm going to recap the St. Louis game. First goal, Svechnikov scores from Aho and Jarvis. And I was so happy to see Svech score because this is a season where you need your stars to step up. And Svech did. Good on him for getting that goal. He's actually, I mean, if you look at the stats for the Hurricanes, he is one of the top point producers right now. But with Fetch, obviously, the biggest thing for him is scoring goals. He can, I mean, I think he can pass the puck pretty well too, but that's not his forte. His forte is scoring goals. And I like seeing that from Svetch. We need more of that goal scoring as the season progresses. But it's 1-0 Carolina. And then in the second period, and honestly, I thought that first period was the best period the Hurricanes had. In the second period, I thought the Canes starting out was good, and then came the interference penalty with Gostisbehere. Now, I know I'm probably beating a dead horse with this, but I didn't really like the officiating. That's all I'm going to say. But Gostisbehere, he takes a penalty, and obviously we kill that penalty, but you could tell after St. Louis had that power play, things were changing. St. Louis was starting to get confidence, and they're trying to get back to their form of what they call hockey. And they certainly did it in the second period. You had Joseph, Neighbors, and Holloway scoring. Another thing to point out, too, is obviously Anderson played the game against Pittsburgh. I thought Anderson played a pretty good game. Maybe you can fault him on that O'Connor goal. On trying, he was too deep in his net, I thought. He probably need to be out a little bit more, trying to challenge that shot. But otherwise, I thought Anderson had a very, very strong game against Pittsburgh. Kochekov, no. But I will say with Kochekov, when it comes to these goals, they were not his fault, totally. Honestly, I thought this was a game Carolina could have won. They really could have. And it was unfortunate because the way the St. Louis game came down in that second period, you have Joseph scoring, Jake Neighbors, and Dylan Holloway. And we needed to get out of that intermission with a score staying like that, or at least scoring a goal for the Hurricanes in order to make it competitive. But that second period wasn't good at all for the Hurricanes. And Kochekov, yes, I think he could have stopped the third goal. I believe the third goal was it was Dylan Holloway. He should have stopped that, I thought. But the other two goals, I mean, Joseph, he was screened on, and so was the Jake Neighbors goal. He was screened on that as well. So while Kochekov could have played better, I think the players in front of him could have been better as well. And he was screened on both of the Joseph and Neighbors goal. Hurricanes needed to be a little bit better. And this is one of those games where Carolina was great on the special teams, but it didn't matter because the Hurricanes lost this game. And sometimes there are games where special teams, it's not going to be a factor when it comes to winning the games. So, while they were good special teams wise, I mean, Carolina scored 1 for 3 on the power play, and St. Louis 0 for 4. Again, great special teams numbers, really, really good. But at 5-on-5 in that second period, specifically, just Canes were just flat. They really were. It was not just Kachekov. The team was flat in front of him. He is not the only one to blame. And then in the third period, that's when us Canes fans obviously have hope. And that was when we get to see the goals from Shane Gostisbehere on the power play once again from Aho and Svetch. Just a great goal. You can tell he is just oozing with confidence right now on that first power play unit. And I love Gostisbehere. He is doing great. And I know I've already seen the comparisons between him and Shea, of course. But I would say the comparison, if you're comparing Shea with Gostisbehere, you can't look at it at the surface level. You kind of have to look at it more on the different assets of the players' games. I think Shea still is better when it comes to the playing a two-way game, but I think Gostisbehere is better when it comes to this. I think a little bit better when it comes to the skating than Shea. And I think Gostisbehere is certainly a lot better offensively than Shea. And I would say Shea is probably a little bit better defensively. So this whole thing of comparing of saying that Shea is better than Gostisbehere or Gostisbehere is better than Shea, you kind of need to dig a little bit deeper into saying uh, what area of their ability on the ice are they better at compared to the others. Because I'm not going to say Shea is better than Gostisbehere straight up, because there are certain areas where Gostisbehere excels at over Shea, and there are certain areas of Shea's game where he's better than Gostisbehere. So it's, to me, when it comes to that comparison game, I don't really like getting into that, to be honest, because again, both are two great players. They just, where one excels offensively, the other excels a little bit more defensively. They're both really great players. That's where I'm kind of getting at there. But honestly, Gostisbehere, he's doing amazing. Obviously, you have the pair of Ghost of Walker, which is pretty cool. And I mean, if you look at it in the month of October, it makes sense because it's Halloween season, of course. And I think that pair has honestly been one of the best pairs. Honestly, this might be a hot take, but I think the Ghost Walker pair is better than the Orlov Chatfield pair, because I think that pair has been very good. And to be honest, if you look at the pairs from the game against St. Louis, the Burns Slavin pair, mm, I mean, they were on the ice for, I believe, 3 of those goals, I believe. So probably not the best night for them. But again, in that second period, it was more of a team collapse than a Kachekov collapse or a collapse on just one person. It was really a total team effort when it came to the collapse. Not really blaming one player there, whether it's the goalie or not. But eventually we do tie it. This is probably a goal, the Jack Roslovic goal. Excellent goal. That's probably a goal St. Louis's goalie wants to have. But he is able to get it through. I believe it was a 5-hole goal. I could be wrong about that, but that Jack Roslovic goal, ooh, that was good. That was a very, very great goal. And one thing to notice heading into the third period is Brennmore did shake up the lines a bit. And to be honest, I actually liked what he did. He put Roslovic with Drury and Robinson, and he put Blake up with KK and HS. And I actually really liked that. I thought it made sense of just because Carolina was not doing good in that second period. And honestly, it worked out because Roslovic was able to get a goal from a great pass from Drury. It was a slapper of a shot, and it goes in. And us Kings fans were like, yes, we tied it. And to be honest, when we tied it, I was like, you know what? If we can at least get a point against St. Louis, I'm happy about that. I am. And of course, we don't, because you have Kasperi Kapanen, whose father played for the Hurricanes, of course. He scores. And the big thing, again, I don't think this is a goal Kachekov you can blame him on, because if you look at how that play developed, Netchus fumbled that puck. Like, why did he fumble that puck? To me, that's more on him than Kachekov trying to save it, because Kapanen was coming in with full steam. He can't put Kachekov in no man's land, I thought, just from looking at that play. Now, again, Kachekov, probably, can he save that? I think he can, just because Kachekov, I believe, has a higher ceiling compared to Anderson. But I'm not going to blame him for that goal, because, I mean, Kachekov, while he could have saved it, he could have said, hey, Natchez shouldn't have fumbled that puck. He just let that puck go right behind him, and you can't allow that to happen. As much of a Natchez fan I am, Natchez needs to take control of that puck. He does. And while I mean Natchez, I mean, I thought I thought he had a good game. I thought when it came to most of our players, they were really good in the first period. The first period I thought was the best period for Carolina. And in the early parts of the third period, I thought Carolina was obviously really good, but St. Louis fought back. They're a team not to be trifled with. St. Louis, I mean, they did good. They really did. One thing I'm sure if you've noticed about watching that St. Louis game is when they realized that they had to get a little bit better in that second period, they had to up the amp on their physicality a bit. And I think we saw that St. Louis started to really punch their way through the Hurricanes. And while I think St. Louis's physicality did get to the Hurricanes, Carolina needs to step up physically too. We do have some physical players. We have Robinson, who's physical. KK can be physical. Svetch can be physical. We've already saw Svetch be physical, of course, but we have physicality too, and we cannot let their physicality kind of weigh down on us and mess up our game. And I think that's kind of what happened too, is that their physicality caught the Hurricanes a little bit by surprise. I thought that was one thing that I kind of noticed when St. Louis turned their game on. And another thing too that happened in the third period, you have Brent Burns and Svechnikov making scary moments. Obviously, the first one was Brent Burns stopping a shot with his neck. That was scary. And obviously, he had to go to the locker room, but he came back. I'm telling you, Brent Burns is a strong guy. He really is. And I mean, when he came back, like, I was like, I mean, it's not like I expected him to come back, but I think he could have, just because if you look at his physique, like, that guy's a workhorse. I loved, honestly, if any player was to, like, maybe arm wrestle Rod Brindamore, because we all know Rod Brindamore. I mean, he's all muscle. Brent Burns would be probably the only guy that probably could maybe beat Brindamore in an arm wrestling battle, because Brent Burns is really he's pounded with muscle too, so he really is. He's a tough guy, and when he took that shot to the neck, he proved how tough he could be. And the last thing I want to touch on, obviously, is a scary incident with Svetch. That was scary because the shot, obviously, I mean, I believe it was on the power play, but I believe it was Netchus that like took a hard slapper of the puck to the net. Obviously, it hits Svechnikov in the knee. And I'm sure if you're a Canes fan watching that game, I'm sure, like, oh no, because it hit him in the knee. And we all know his history with his knee. Now, honestly, I can't remember which knee it was that he tore his ACL a couple years ago. I think it was his I think it was his left, maybe, and he got hit in the puck on the right against St. Louis. I could be wrong about that, but either way, us Canes fans, we know we do not want Svesh to have any more injuries. And that's part of the reason why we want him to play so well, because he has been hampered with injuries. And I think if he can play a full healthy season, I think we can get 60 to 70 points. He really can. I think he's been very good, but again, and I'm happy he scored against St. Louis. He's got to get those goals. Really, he really needs to. And another thing too, when it comes to the chances, like in the first period against St. Louis, you need to bury those chances because you don't want those chances to come back haunt you later, which it kind of did against St. Louis. Another thing too, and sorry, this is going to be the last thing I'm going to talk about here. Is Sebastian Aho, he's leading this team in points. He is, I believe. He has 1 goal, 3 assists, pretty good. But if you look at that 1 goal, that was an empty net goal, and we're about to reach the 5 games here. He is obviously our best player on this team. He needs to score. As much as I think he has played very good. I really do. But we need to get him to start scoring some actual goals, not just empty net goals. So I would say that's probably a nitpick type of thing, but at the same time, he's our best player. At some point, the goals have to go in. The reason why I say that is because he had a chance to bury a puck to tie the game within the final seconds, and he hits the goalie's pad. Like, you got to elevate that puck. You just have to. So we'll see how Carolina does against Edmonton and Calgary. Obviously, we will cover Edmonton in the next episode. So we'll see how that does. Edmonton's not looking too good, so maybe we can win against Edmonton. But yeah, we will see you guys for the next episode.